So next up, we have someone who might be the only speaker today who knows how to juggle. And when he's not juggling physical objects, he is juggling his studies as a biochemistry major and work as a co-founder of a concussion testing startup. So next we have junior at Penn State, Matt Rhoda.
Where's the clicker? Needed the clicker. Sorry. Can you imagine if I just started juggling up here? That'd be kind of funny. But okay, today, my name's Matt Rhoda, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about innovation and entrepreneurship within the Penn State community and how you might be able to get involved in that. But before I do, I would hope you would have a little bit of healthy skepticism and ask, what can this kid teach me? Why should I listen to him? To that, I would like to introduce to you Reflection Interactive Technologies, which has basically been my life over the last 3 years. What started as a terrible injury I got playing ice hockey, a concussion, has kind of snowballed into a new type of concussion testing that has potential for athletes at all levels. And it's actually become pretty successful. Oh, to talk a little bit about the board itself, it's this large LED touchscreen where you can have athletes interact with different light patterns, maybe think whack-a-mole, but from this fun, quick test, we can extrapolate data on hand-eye coordination, reaction time, peripheral vision, all of which are extremely correlated to concussions. Now, we have had a pretty good amount of success so far. We've raised quite a bit of money, grown from 3 people to 8, even won different competitions, and had articles in notable places like Engadget, Forbes even, and of course our very own Penn State. The Penn State one on Facebook got over 1 million views, so we were pretty excited about that. Now, largely though, that's not important for today, because I'm here to tell you a little bit more about why you can get involved in entrepreneurship and how rewarding it can be. Because sure, I can give you a 30-second highlight reel of all the success I've had, but what you don't see is just how busy I can be and the behind the scenes of it. So this is a screenshot of my Google Calendar the week before finals last semester. And those aren't events that say study physics. Those are literal meetings I had to go at or different places on campus. And that part of it sucks. But despite it, I'm going to stand up here and tell you that it is absolutely worth it, because to find something that you're extremely driven for and passionate about and willing to work 80 hours a week for is pretty awesome. So I've learned 1 or 2 things going through this process, and from that I would like to kind of offer a little bit of an insight that I've had in case you ever have an idea and show you just how possible it is to do. So let's say you've got an idea, but how do you get started? My first piece of advice is basically find a buddy to partner up with. You can, besides being able to split up the work with a buddy, it's extremely motivating for you to have, to basically have someone who holds you accountable and it drives you as well. Because if you've got someone else involved, you can't just throw in the towel and call it quits when things get really tough, at least without having a very serious conversation first. My company actually began when I was in high school after I got this very severe concussion playing ice hockey. And from that, I ended up missing a couple months of school. I couldn't really do work. It was pretty tough. But then about half a year later, I kind of teamed up with 2 of my good friends just to see if we could, maybe come up with a better concussion test. As it gained more and more momentum, though, and we saw that it might be kind of feasible and realistic in the real world, I eventually said to one of them, hey, this could actually be a real thing. We might want to partner up and start a company. To which he said, well, Matt, why would I want to partner with you? You're concussed. Now, that actually happened, but I would also urge you to be very cautious when picking a partner, basically because when things get really tough and it starts filling all of your free time, having someone equally driven as you can be critical for your success. All right, so you've got your friend, you've got your idea. Now what? How do you succeed? To that, and I can't emphasize this enough, but be willing to change your strategies. And essentially, don't be discouraged by a no. Because as you continue to talk to people, you should be gaining more and more insight about what your ideal business should be and what your business model will look like. Back in my company's early days, we didn't even write down some of the ideas we had. Not because they were bad, but because we knew that we were shortly going to talk to someone else and they would tell us something different. And that's a good thing, because the ability to pivot and shift gears can be a surefire way to succeed. Beyond the good advice you'll get, though, and good feedback, I have to admit you will also get some pretty terrible advice. And even sometimes you'll meet with people who just, for whatever reason, maybe your age or your idea, they'll more or less think they're better than you. I emailed this CEO of a small company once asking to meet with him just to talk about potential funding and advice we could get. And he emails me back and says, Matt, happy to help. I would love to meet with you and offer whatever I can, but I'm a very busy CEO and I'm not sure if we'll be able to work a time out. Please talk to my secretary. Okay, a little pompous, but I'll take it in stride. Email his secretary asking what's the availability, and she gets back to me and says, on this day, he is available between 10:30 and 4:30. What works for you? Okay, Mr. Busy CEO could have led with, oh, I'm free all day, but it should have been a kind of a red flag too, though, because the meeting consisted of me talking for about 5 minutes and then him taking the remaining 50 to tell me why everything I was doing was wrong. The point is, you're gonna get some good advice, some bad advice, and I just encourage you to use your gut with a little bit of market research to tell the difference. Okay, so I kind of touched on this a little bit, but 99% of my days are not glorious. In fact, there's a lot of days where I will wake up and think just it's all coming down at once and that it's a terrible idea and why am I wasting my time on something that'll never be successful? How do you stay motivated through that? Because it's tough. To that, I have to say, remember why you're doing what you're doing. Because regardless of whether or not you're trying to protect a generation of athletes from head injuries or you're just selling fidget spinners to make a quick buck, entrepreneurship has an impact on the community. A professor at Penn State, here, he told me once, and this has really resonated with my experience as an entrepreneur. He said, Matt, there's something called death days, where you will wake up and say, today's the day my company's gonna fail. You will have at least 5 of those before you're successful. Honestly, I think 5's a bit of an underestimate. But the death days are not the end all be all. You can still, just because your sales are down and your work's piling all up at once and it seems crazy and you can't handle it all, that doesn't mean you should give up on your dream. Actually, a little while ago, on the day Reflection hired its first full-time employee, so a pretty big day for us, I wrote myself a letter with the intention of reading it on the next death day I had. And it took about 2 months before I broke the seal of that envelope, but I wanted to read a little bit of an excerpt that I wrote to myself on it. Matt, regardless of whether or not you end up changing the world, you've already made a difference and impacted a life. When the Bureau of Labor Statistics releases the next job report saying 50,000 jobs were created this quarter, you get to say, I'm a part of that. So yes, it's tough, but you shouldn't give up on your dream and you shouldn't give up on your company because entrepreneurship makes a difference and impacts the community. Now, what better community to impact than Penn State, though? Because think about it for a second. You guys are at a top-tier research institution surrounded by brilliant and motivated students, and I'm assuming most of you guys don't have kids or a mortgage to worry about if things go south. It's a perfect time to get involved, and Penn State has a ton of resources for you to do that. There's entrepreneurship classes. The Happy Valley Launchbox on Allen Street is a great resource. Small Business Development Center. I would like to add Hack PSU up there because that's a great way to come up with an idea and get moving with that. Especially mentors, though, because you will find a ton of people at Penn State who want to see you succeed just as much as you want to be successful. So I'm going to kind of touch on one more point, and I ask you guys to bear with me a little bit here because I'm still going through this process. But that's basically, how to succeed long-term, or what have I gotten out of this so far? That's basically, don't be afraid to try and fail, because failure is not a bad thing. Entrepreneurship is a little bit like the scientific method, or you can read a book on it and take a class, but you're really just reading about a process to follow. To actually take an idea and try to bring it to life is where you'll really gain a majority of your real-world experience and figuring out just what life is like out there. So yeah, even if it does fail, which wouldn't be fun, I can tell you entrepreneurship will teach you about 10 times more outside of the classroom than it will in. Thank you guys.